You wake up tired. You scroll. You work. You distract yourself. You sleep poorly. You repeat. And somewhere in the fog of that cycle, you've convinced yourself this is temporary. That once the project ends, once the promotion comes, once the relationship stabilizes, you'll have time to become the man you imagine yourself to be. You won't. Because the life you're living isn't the result of bad luck or poor timing. It's the result of who you are right now. Not who you think you are. Not who you were 5 years ago. Who you are today, measured by what you actually do when no one is watching. The Stoics understood something most men refuse to accept. Your circumstances will never align. There will always be stress, uncertainty, and exhaustion. Waiting for the right moment to build yourself is the same as waiting to drown quietly. What separates a man who transforms from a man who decays isn't opportunity. It's structure. It's the willingness to impose order on chaos, starting with yourself. And that begins with one decision: to choose a single practice that doesn't entertain you, doesn't validate you, and doesn't end. A practice that builds you whether you feel like it or not. Most men avoid this. They call it extreme. What they really mean is, it requires them to stop lying to themselves. The modern world has taught you to optimize everything except yourself. You manage your calendar, your productivity apps, your sleep tracker, your macros. And still you feel weak. Not physically, internally, because you've outsourced discipline to systems that don't require you to endure anything. Stoicism doesn't care about your systems. It cares about your capacity to act correctly under pressure, in silence, without reward. Marcus Aurelius had an empire. He still woke up and wrote to himself about resisting comfort. Epictetus was a slave. He still taught that freedom exists only in what you control: your will, your attention, your response. Your life will not improve because your circumstances improve. It will improve when you become a man capable of imposing order on any circumstance. That transformation doesn't happen by reading quotes. It happens through voluntary difficulty, through choosing to do hard things when easier things are available, through rejecting distraction not occasionally, but structurally. The 4 practices that follow are not hobbies. Hobbies are recreational. These are instruments of self-construction. They don't promise happiness. They promise capability. And capability, sustained over time, becomes identity. You're not looking for something to fill your time. You're looking for something that reshapes how you move through time. Something that makes you unavoidable to yourself. Choose one. Commit to it without negotiation. Let it rebuild you in silence. Habit 1. Physical resistance. Body as instrument. Train your body under load. Not for aesthetics. Not for performance metrics. For the practice of continuing when your body begs you to stop. Strength training, endurance running, martial arts, or rucking. It doesn't matter which. What matters is that it's hard, repetitive, and has no finish line. The Stoics called the body an instrument of the soul. Not something to worship, but something to sharpen. When you lift, you're not building muscle. You're building the ability to stay present under discomfort. When you run, you're not chasing speed. You're learning that your mind will quit long before your body does. And when you override that voice, when you take one more step, one more rep, one more round, you're training something deeper than fitness. You're training will. Most men train to look better. That's fine, but it's shallow. It makes your effort conditional. You stop when the mirror satisfies you. True training has no endpoint. It's a dialogue between you and your limits, held daily, in private, without spectators. The weight doesn't care how you feel. The road doesn't care if you're motivated. And that's the point. You show up anyway. Not because it feels good. Because you said you would. And over time, that agreement with yourself becomes the foundation of everything else. Your body becomes proof that you can be trusted. That's not motivational. That's structural. Habit 2. Cognitive resistance, hard thinking. Your mind has become soft. Not because you're unintelligent, but because you've trained it to expect immediate reward. You consume content that requires no effort. You avoid books that don't give you a hit of insight every 5 minutes. You've conditioned yourself to quit the moment thinking becomes uncomfortable. This is decay. Stoicism demands that you think slowly, deeply, and without distraction. That means philosophy, not self-help, not productivity hacks. Philosophy that forces you to confront your assumptions, your mortality, your values. Read Marcus Aurelius. Read Epictetus. Read Seneca. Not passively. Not while listening to music. Not while your phone sits within reach. Read with a pen. Write in the margins. Argue with the text. Let it resist you. Or if reading isn't your entry point, study something with no quick application. Logic, mathematics, history, chess, ancient languages. The subject matters less than the quality of attention it demands. The goal is not to finish. The goal is to endure confusion, frustration, and slowness without retreating. Because when you train your mind to stay in hard problems, you stop being controlled by distraction. You stop needing stimulation. You stop avoiding what's difficult. And that makes you dangerous. Not to others. To the version of yourself that would rather scroll than sit with discomfort. Hard thinking is a practice of refusal. Refusal to let your attention be bought. Refusal to let your mind be shaped by what's easy. Habit 3. Tangible craft and precision training. Work with your hands. Build something real. Not digital. Not abstract. Something that exists in physical space and holds you accountable. Woodworking, metalwork, gardening, cooking, leatherwork, pottery, calligraphy. The medium doesn't matter. What matters is that reality doesn't lie. You can't fake a dovetail joint. You can't rationalize a collapsed souffle. You can't negotiate with a plant that's dying. The material tells you the truth. And when you work with truth, you stop being able to hide from yourself. Craft teaches precision. It teaches patience. It teaches that results come from hundreds of small decisions done correctly, not one moment of brilliance. You measure twice. You move slowly. You accept that mistakes are visible and must be corrected, not explained away. This is the opposite of how most men live. Most men live in abstraction. They talk about their goals. They plan, they theorize. But they never put themselves in a position where their incompetence is undeniable. Craft forces that confrontation. And in that confrontation, you learn honesty. You learn presence. You learn that excellence is quiet, repetitive, and humble. The Stoics valued usefulness over status. They believed a man should be able to act effectively in the world, not just think about it. When you build something with your hands, you prove to yourself that you can transform raw material into something functional. That proof changes you. It makes you steady. It makes you real. Habit 4. Silent discipline and internal validation. Do something every day that no one will ever know about. Not because it's secret. Because it's yours. Meditation, journaling, cold exposure. Fasting, a daily walk in silence. No posts, no tracking app. No accountability partner. No audience. Just you and the practice. This is where most men fail. Because they've tied their discipline to external validation. They need someone to see it, comment on it, acknowledge it. And when that validation stops, so does the practice. Stoicism teaches that virtue is its own reward. That the right action is right whether or not anyone notices. When you build a practice that exists only between you and yourself, you stop performing. You stop needing proof. You start doing it because it's part of who you are, not part of what you show. This is internal validation. It's not confidence. It's deeper. It's the knowledge that you can be trusted in the dark. That you'll do what you said you'd do even when no one is checking. Even when it doesn't feel good. Even when it doesn't matter to anyone but you. And that makes you unmovable. Not because you're hard. Because you're honest. You've stopped negotiating with yourself. You've stopped needing permission. You've become your own authority. That's not motivational. That's freedom. Here's the test. Pick one of these four. Only one. Commit to it for 6 months without deviation, without experimentation, without adding a second practice because you're bored. The modern man is addicted to variety. He starts lifting, then switches to running, then tries yoga, then quits everything because nothing gave him the transformation he wanted in 3 weeks. He never goes deep. He never builds mastery. He never experiences what happens when you stay with something long enough that it stops being effort and starts being identity. 6 months. No switching. No quitting. No renegotiating because it's hard or boring or not giving you instant results. You show up every day. You execute. You endure. You let the repetition reshape you. Depth is the modern superpower. Everyone is shallow. Everyone is scattered. Everyone is chasing the next thing. You will not be everyone. You will be the man who chose one path and walked it until it became part of his bones. At the end of 6 months, you won't need to ask if it worked. You'll know. Because you'll be different. And that difference will be undeniable. You have 2 directions available. You can drift, which feels like rest but is actually slow erasure. Or you can carry a burden, which feels like sacrifice but is actually construction. Most men choose drift. They call it balance. They call it being realistic. But drift has a cost. It costs you your self-respect. It costs you your presence. It costs you the man you could have been. The burden is simpler. It asks one thing. Will you show up when it's hard? That's the only question that matters. What's your answer?